Yes. Whoa. 1 second. 1 second, y'all. Okay. Yes. Yes. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam Rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon this last and final messenger, family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes. Welcome back to the Feachaz. I greet you all in peace and love and no hatred in my heart. Salaam Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, please like, subscribe, and please share. As you know, we got a hella haters up in here. What's going on here, family? 1 second, y'all. 1 second, y'all. 1 second, y'all. You know, I'm rushing from out of work. You know what I'm saying? So let me just see what's going on. Can y'all hear me? Press number 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me, family. Let's get the sound thing out of the way first. You know, we dusty. We got to make sure that the sound is working first. So let me know if y'all can hear me. Okay, let me know if we actually got some sound up in this piece, right? And we got like a crazy show for y'all today. Something that Negro Damas has been saying from time, and people now is just catching up. People now is just catching up, and my day ones they know already. And if y'all don't, but if y'all like are my day 2s or my day 3s, we're gonna ask my day 1s about 1 or 2 questions so y'all can know. Negro Damas has struck again. And it's not that Negro Damas has a crystal ball or anything like that. No, it ain't got nothing to do like that. Nothing to do with that. You see, what y'all gotta understand is scholarship is not like social media. It's 2 completely different things. And even though I'm not a scholar, I'm not a talib al-ilm, I'm not somebody who is learned in Islam or anything like that. I'm just a dude. But my tarbiyah, my cultivation rather, was based upon actual Islamic scholarship. You know, my favorite scholars are Sheikh Albani rahimahullah. You know, as most of y'all know, anyways. I'm not afraid to say that. You know, that's my favorite scholar, Sheikh Albani rahimahullah. And I also, you know, take from Sheikh Uthaymeen, Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Muqbil rahimahumullah. Sheikh Muhammad al-Aman al-Jami, all these mountains of knowledge. And in the West, Sheikh Dawood Adib, Sheikh Abu Sama al-Zahabi, of course, Dr. Bilal Phillips, Dr. Abdul Hakim Quick, from the people in my generation, like around my age, I like Shadid Muhammad, I like Akil Ingram, Mufti Munir, he's a little bit younger than me. I like him. Same thing with Dr. Tahir Wyatt. I like him. These are younger cats than me. But the point is, when it comes to Islamic anything, I never, ever, ever, ever put my trust or my religion or my deen in the hands of a YouTuber. Okay. I don't do that, and I would never do that. To me, that is crazy. That is absolutely nuts and bonkers. But what y'all got to understand is that Islam in the West, just like the black community, is something that is thoroughly and perpetually always infiltrated. The enemy is always sending the infiltrator in the masjid, in the conferences, all this kind of stuff. And sometimes the infiltrator looks like me and you. They walking in the masjid with a thobe and a beard, and they walking in the masjid with one or two sentences in Arabic. And in our time, there is a wave that is coming, because we talked about the YouTubian da'i elites for quite some time on this channel. And I believe that there is a new thing that is coming that's going to be even more dangerous than the YouTubian da'i elites. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty, family. As you can see from the title of today's live is Narcissism, Infiltration, and the Icarus Effect. And some of y'all might be wondering, what's the Icarus Effect? Because maybe you never heard of Icarus. So we're going to just do a really brief summary of who Icarus is. You see, family, you might be wondering who Icarus is. This story comes from ancient Greek. It's ancient Greek mythology, the story of Icarus. Okay. And it's one of the most well articulated and timeless maxims that you can come across. And the story goes something like this. Icarus, in ancient Greek times, was a son of a man named Daedalus. And Daedalus was a master craftsman who built a labyrinth. And the labyrinth that he built was in a place called Crete. So a labyrinth is like an elaborate maze. And he built this labyrinth to hold a monster called a minotaur. A minotaur is essentially a half human, half bull type of monster, right? So when Daedalus helped the hero of this story, his name is Theseus, escape the maze, King Minos turned on him and locking both him, Daedalus, the master craftsman who built this labyrinth, and his son, Icarus, in a tower and prisoners on an island surrounded by a sea. So now they're on this island, okay? Daedalus and his son Icarus. They're on this island. So they're on this island on the sea. So they realize that escape by land is impossible because they're on an island. And escape by sea is impossible because they're on an island. Y'all hearing me? So what did Daedalus do? Daedalus, because he's a genius, okay, in this story, he's a master craftsman. He's thinking, well, we can't go by land, we can't go by sea, but why don't we try escaping by the air? So with his genius and his desperation, he created these wings. Okay, he created wings to fly, and these wings were created from feathers and wax. So before they took flight, right? They created this. They took their time, whatever. They made these wings from feathers and wax. This is where we're coming to the meat, right? Daedalus is telling his son Icarus. He's telling his son, "Look, son, okay, fly the middle path. Fly the middle path. Don't fly too low because the spray from the sea will cause these wings to get heavy and drag them down, and you'll fall into the sea. And don't fly too high because if you get too high, the sun will cause the wax to melt and you will fall into the sea." That was his advice. But once Icarus, he was airborne, he got overcome by the thrill of the flight. And the wind rushed past him and he's feeling the rush of flying. Okay, he's feeling that rush, that rush. So what he does, because he's drunk on his freedom now, you know what I mean? He's feeling high from his freedom. He's finally off the island. He's flying. He's getting high and whatnot. You know that feeling, that feeling of exhilaration that you get, right? He just flew higher and higher and higher. While the whole time his father, "Don't fly too high. Don't fly too high. Fly the middle path." But that feeling, that exhilaration, that high that he got caused him to fly higher and higher and higher till eventually the sun melted the wax on his feathers and caused him to fall into the sea and perish. So, what is the importance of this story, and what does this have to do? What is the Icarus effect? The Icarus effect is the moral of this story here is that there's like some very profound morals. First of all, Icarus ignored the wisdom of his father. He ignored the wisdom of the one who was elder than him, the one who was more wise than him, the one who has, more experience than him. He ignored that in pursuit of glory, in pursuit of of that exhilaration. He ignored his elder, the one who was giving him good advice, in pursuit of that feeling of being high and whatnot. And then he ended up paying the price for that pursuit. The other important lesson from this is that ambition can sometimes be fatal. And Brother Liam Brady, he put the perfect word in the chat. It's hubris. Hubris. It was Icarus, the hubris of Icarus, that caused him to ignore the good advice of his father and caused him to fly high. And eventually that was his downfall, his literal and metaphorical downfall. The other lesson in the Icarus effect is that if you do not know your limits and your ambition causes you to exceed your limits, then eventually your ambition will be the same thing that you think that is getting you to that high level will eventually lead to your inevitable downfall. Because your ambition, and ambition is one thing, but when your ambition leads to hubris, because hubris is a type of ambition. Ambition, there's nothing wrong with ambition in general. As a matter of fact, you should be ambitious. But overly ambitious people will do things that are harmful to get the short-term goal. That is called hubris. Okay? They will ignore good advice. They will ignore discipline and patience in order to get to a higher level. Okay? The other thing that we can learn from this metaphor is like what we say in Islam, and what the Prophet ﷺ always said is always be in the middle, take the middle path, never go into extremes. If you fly too low, you will sink. And if you fly too high, you will fall. So always be in the middle path. Always be in the middle path. Always have balance. So this is the Icarus effect. If you look at these utopian dawah elites, do they move as people who are in the middle path? Yes or no? Somebody put it in the chat, please. Or do they move like people who are overly ambitious, overly hubristic, to the point where they will do things that will harm the wider Muslim community to grow their platforms? Which one is it? Are they people who move in the middle path, these utopian da'i elites? Sister Tika says no. I don't believe there are people who are of the middle path at all. As a matter of fact, we said it before and we say it again. These are people who don't follow Islam, they follow algorithm Islam. And wherever the algorithm takes them, that's exactly what they believe. This is how this is relevant to today's topic. I want you to understand something about modern dawah. The modern day da'i, okay, and we're talking about 2025, not 1995, not 2005. We're talking about 2025, okay, and up. The modern day da'i will not make dawah unless in two situations, unless they are in front of a camera, or unless they get talking points from somebody else in front of a camera. They are not doing what is traditional in dawah in terms of seeking knowledge, actual knowledge about Quran and Sunnah and understanding of the Salaf Salih. This is not what they're doing. They are restricting dawah to entertaining talking points that they see in some argument somewhere. And they will only do it in front of the camera. Meanwhile, the majority of the people, the general person, if you're actually making real dawah out on the street, they don't know anything about these talking points. Y'all hearing me? They don't know anything about these contradictions in the Bible and all this kind of other weird stuff. So The thing is that anyone who is in front of a camera is subject to nurture their ego. They're subject to nurture their ego, their hubris, and their narcissistic tendencies. You know, sometimes I'm just going to be frank with y'all, okay? I don't think I've ever said this before on my channel, but I'm just going to be real with y'all. You guys know this because the brother, A.A. Witherspoon, he says, Salaam Alaikum, my brother, Feachaz, it's been a while, and he has got the thumbs up, right? Do you guys know why I disappear? I'm just going to be real with y'all. Why I might disappear for weeks at a time, long stretches, I'll just disappear, right? The real reason that I disappear is for the very same thing that I just said right now. Believe it or not, okay? Stuck for a lot of you. I just being real. May Allah hide my sins, and may Allah hide your sins and hide everybody's sins, right? But me personally, for my own soul, I don't want to fall into this hubris. I don't want to fall into this to build up these narcissistic tendencies. And even if you look at my thumbnails, very rarely would you see my picture on a thumbnail. For the same reason, because I don't want anybody to see me, the brother Bilal, as the center of the message. And I don't want anybody, I don't want for my own soul to be somebody who does this for the sake of being seen, for my own soul. So I might disappear for some long stretches just to you know, make sure that I don't fall into this, because anybody who is in front of a camera is subject to this. Dawah in our time, it's done in front of cameras, and it should be done in front of the camera, of course, right? I'm not saying not to do it, but what will happen is that the person who does this and is seen and is reading the comments, mashallah, mashallah, may Allah bless you, and all the kind of stuff, and seeing the likes and seeing the shares, of course it's going to have an effect on you. It's going to have an effect on you psychologically and spiritually. Of course it will. We are on YouTube. We want our channels to be big. We want our channels to grow, right? Most people on YouTube want their channels to be profitable, of course. It's the same with me. But what I don't want is for it to affect my soul. That's the truth. That is the truth. I don't want it to affect my soul. So when I feel like, you know what, maybe it's a, you know, again, full of myself, whatever, right? I'm going to disappear because I don't want it to affect my soul like that. I'm just a dude. I'm just a regular brother. And I'm not doing this for a career either, right? I'm not saying that it is wrong. I'm not saying that it is incorrect for somebody to do this for a career. If they can do it for a career, no problem. But what the trend is that the ones who are doing it as a career sake, you'll find them selling out to the point where you don't know who is saying what and what's doing who. And it's crazy out there. But I digress, okay? Because we want to get to the real topic here, right? So then there's the other side. You have the ones who are in front of the camera, then you have the ones who are watching. Anybody who was watching these folks who spend their time taking their marching orders by these types, these folks are fully invested in their indoctrination. So if you take, for example, Mohammed Hijad, Mohammed Hijad has the largest Muslim platform on YouTube. He is the largest Muslim platform on YouTube, Mohammed Hijad. But how did he get this large platform? Okay. He got there by platforming some of the most dangerous and deceptive personalities against Muslims, as long as they met two conditions, and sometimes not even that. Okay. As long as they, number one, have a large platform themselves. Okay. They have to have large followings. And number two, as long as they are willing to say one or two good things about Islam. And sometimes they don't even have to do that either. Sometimes they do not have to do that either. Okay. It was Mohammed Hijad, may I remind you, who first platformed Andrew Tate and continued to defend Andrew Tate after all this nonsense. Okay. It was him who invited the colonial enthusiast and Zionist Jordan Peterson, even after he did that whole debacle with advice to Muslims and all the Muslims abandoned him. It was him who brought him back. Ain't nobody, everybody was finished with Jordan Peterson. It was Muhammad Hijad who brought him back. It was Mohammed Hijad who is the last, as far as I know, he is the only and the last of the YouTubians who is still caping for Daniel Haqiqatjou. Everybody else left them. Okay. Family, do y'all know somebody on YouTube who called out Daniel Haqiqatjou without any dust, called him an infiltrator from jump? Not 1 week, not 1 month, but years ago said this guy is an infiltrator. Do you all know somebody like that? If you do, can you please put the name in the chat of who that person on YouTube is? And now everybody and their mama is calling out Daniel Haqiqatjou only years after the fact, mind you, only years after the fact, because of all of his defense of the Rafida Shia. We want to know if there was somebody, okay, somebody who was 10 toes down calling Daniel Haqiqatjou an infiltrator. Me, I think you mean me, not me, Sister T, but me, meaning me, okay? You, who, me? Me? It was me? Yes, it was Neodamus. Not 1 week, not 1 month, not even 1 year, years ago. With receipts, we were calling it out. We didn't even make any videos. Hey, what is the features I'll say? Exactly. Go back to all my old videos about Daniel Haqiqatjou. Way back, even after at COVID times. At COVID times, family, we're making videos about Daniel Haqiqatjou. First, we said this dude is pandering to the alt-right. Then we said, no, this dude ain't pandering. He is full. He all right. He is all right. This man is a white supremacist. Then we said, no, this man is a closet Shia. Then we said, no, he's a straight up infiltrator. He's a straight up infiltrator. Years ago, we were saying this. Only in 2025, you find every single YouTuber basically saying what we said years ago. Remember when we put out about Daniel Haqiqatjou that if you want to know his true beliefs, what he really believes, he got a funnel. We were the ones who put that out. He got a funnel. He's got his YouTube channel, his Facebook, his blog, his Twitter, and his Telegram. His hardcore beliefs funnels from his YouTube and his Facebook to his blog, to his X, to his Telegram. His hardcore beliefs are in his Telegram. If you want to know what he really is, just go there. He's telling you. We were the ones who put that out. We were the ones who were saying when he was invited to AIM conference, and them folks were saying, oh, he's Athari. Wallahi billahi talahi. Okay. Wallahi uqsum billah rabbul kaaba. That would have never happened in the 90s. That would have never happened even in the 2000s. I would say even that would never happen even in the 2010s. But it will happen in 2020. Why? Because of this stuff. The very same thing we're talking about, the Icarus effect. It's the Icarus effect. The people who are in front of you today are narcissists, and they're full of hubris, and they are willing to change all the rules of dawah to build their platforms. Us old men like me, an old man like me, we didn't come from this. We didn't come from that. Okay. Old folks like me didn't come from, taking our dean from Ali Dow and them. Okay, that's not where we got our name from. We didn't get our dean, and we looking at you like you some crazy fools watching YouTube getting your religion. Like, well, what are you guys talking about? How are you going to go to? We come from Mohammed Nasruddin al-Albani. You're coming from Muhammad Hijad. Like, how do you compare the two? Mind you, Muhammad Hijad, the same man who defended Andrew Tate, even after all that stuff, and Daniel Haqiqatjou defended Andrew Tate, even after all that pimping and human trafficking and all that kind of stuff. Andrew Tate, remember we put out the video, Daniel Haqiqatjou, 10-toed sound said Andrew Tate is innocent because the Matrix is out to get him. The Matrix. Y'all bought it. These folks defended Andrew Tate, okay, brought back Jordan Peterson, said Jordan Peterson is sincere on camera. This is Muhammad Hijad, family. The only ally left that I can think of Daniel Haqiqatjou, Muhammad Hijad, family, but has the most smoke for Sheikh Mohammed Nasruddin al-Albani and the Imam Muhammad Abdul Wahab. The most smoke. These are the folks you're following. You deserve to be misguided. And we don't feel sorry for you. But I digress. If you want an example of all of this coming into fruition today and where it is going, we're about to show you today. We might have to take this past Maghrib, actually, family, because I'm not sure if we're going to have enough time to finish this live. Okay? So we might have to take a break when Maghrib time comes in. Those of y'all who are in my time zone, just give me a reminder there in the chat when Maghrib time comes in. We'll take a break from Maghrib. Maybe we can get a guest from like the UK or whatever, or somebody on the West Coast to come in. And then let me put the link in the chat here to invite guests, right? Because it's getting close to prayer time over here, right? I work, right? So I can't always pick the times I start, you know what I mean? Right? So I'm gonna need a volunteer to help me out, inshallah, so that I can make salat. But I digress. The point is, Mohammed Hijad is the de facto leader of your career YouTubian dawah elites, like Ali Dawah, who literally excused Sneeko for his crisis king, and then openly and unabashedly said Christ is king to prove a point in order to protect the degenerate over the deen. Which brings me to this X post. Remember, we was talking this talk for years. I can't remember the last time I talked about YouTubians. We didn't have to. Everybody else was doing the things that we were doing years ago. Johnny come lately. Sorry to say it like that, but all the stuff that we were saying donkey years ago, okay? Now people are saying it. But look at here, family. Let me show y'all something. Let me get this up for y'all, family. One second, y'all. Look at this. Y'all ain't ready for this, man. Look at this, y'all. Y'all ain't ready. Andrew Tate in church again with his wife. All glory to Jesus Christ. Y'all seeing this? Where's Mohammed Hijad? Where's Ali Dawah? Where's millions of people will become Muslim because of the conversion of Andrew Tate, Daniel Haqiqatjou? Where are they? Look at this, y'all. Y'all see that, right? Can't make this crap up, family. But we're not done now. We just getting started. I need somebody to come in here to help me out, inshallah. If you're not making salat, can you just kind of click the link there? Links in the chat. Right? Because it's almost prayer time for us here. Right? But let me go over here, family. Watch this, y'all. Let me show y'all something, man. See, Liam, Sister Tika, who is Tay married to? Every day, come on, don't believe anything that man says. If he says grass is green, you better believe the opposite. If he says the sky is blue, you better believe the opposite. If he says the sun is hot, you better believe the opposite. Believe the opposite until it's proven that what he says is true. These are the people that they are pushing in front of the Muslims. Now look at here. For the most converts still today are kind of unaffected, but there's a slew of converts that are coming in that are affected by this stuff, right? The new type of convert. All right. And we know for sure the foreigners, especially South Asian Muslims, are heavily affected by this stuff. Even admittedly, by Andrew Tate and his minions. Admittedly by them. Who are the ones who put Andrew Tate in front of all these South Asians? Your Mohammed Hijabs, your Ali Dawas, his audience there, right? Look what Liam said. They are too busy in the manosphere. Exactly. Remember what we told y'all? They don't follow Islam, they follow algorithm Islam. So whatever the algorithm tells them, that's going to be their religion, that's going to be their deen. That's how you end up with this stuff here. Hubris, narcissism. So watch it. Look at here, man. Let me get this clip up, y'all. 1 second, y'all. So brother sent this to me today, which is the inspiration behind me doing this live to begin with, because I feel this is an important topic. We don't have to talk about the Moranosphere. We don't have to talk about them. We don't have to talk about the Muslim Moranosphere anymore. We did our work. Something bigger is coming, though, which is why we chose this topic. So look at here, family. TH12 said, false prophets are outside, family, 100%. The false prophets are outside. Even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, he said in an authentic hadith, before the big Antichrist, the big Dajjal, there's going to be 30 smaller or lesser Dajjalun, or the Antichrist. And their method of communication nowadays is done very easily and very cheaply through social media. So watch this, y'all. Oh, 1 second, man. Let me go. Yeah, the Moranosphere, the Muslim Moranosphere. That's what it is. Wallahi, billahi, tallahi, I swear by Allah, Rabbul Kaaba, 15 years ago, this would never happen. Only 15 years ago. Only 15 years ago. And as a matter of fact, it was, I believe it was really, this stuff really started getting out of hand during COVID times, where everybody and their mama was out here, you know, because we couldn't go out. So they were out here. What we're doing, everybody's on social media. And you got to understand how the enemy work, how the enemy think. The enemy is not stupid. The enemy will weaponize the behaviors and the psychology of yourself against you. And this is a very old tactic of the enemy. If you look at the story behind Adam and Iblis and how they were in the garden. Now, Iblis didn't go to Adam telling him about how I hate you and stuff. No, he didn't do all that. He came to Adam talking about, I'm a sincere advisor to you. I'm a sincere advisor to you. And how the enemy speaks. Black folk know all too well about this. We've been dealing with white supremacists since they kidnapped our grandmas and our grandpas and dumped us here. We know very well how they lie. Y'all just got here. And you believe their lies over our experience. So y'all got to learn the hard way. So what can I tell y'all? Right? So we know very well. Iblis is telling Adam, I'm a sincere advisor. But he didn't just stop there. He said, I swear by Allah, I am telling you the truth. He is swearing by Allah and saying that he's telling the truth all at the same time. He's swearing by Allah and lying. Adam never heard. He trusted him, which is how they ended up eating the forbidden fruit. Playing on the psychology and the tendencies of The people, they do the same thing today. They play on your psychology and your tendencies, your habits, which is what the algorithm is. The algorithm will have you going down rabbit holes until you become psychotic, until you become irrational. And then you start saying and believing some of the most ungodly things because you get told the same things over and over and over again. And it is burnt into your brain and branded into your brain, so much so that it becomes an integral part of your belief system. So now you can have a whole slew of people who will sign off, for example, on kidnapping human beings and calling it ICE raids and stuff. But I digress. One second, y'all. Let me get into this thing. Oh, that's not, I don't want to share that one. One second. Hold on. How do I delete this? Oh, man, I am getting old. 1 second, y'all. That's not even one thing I wanted. 1 second, y'all. Forget that X post, y'all. 1 second. We always dusty up in here in the features. That's what I want to post. Okay. So we need a guest to come in, man. Somebody come in the chat and help me out, man. It's almost time for me to pray. What time is Margaret Salat, family? Just put it in the chat, family. Because we got to go in tonight. Yeah, I think it's almost time. Let me check here because y'all are tripping. Nobody wants to help me out. You want me to do all the work by myself? Who says slavery is over? Who says slavery is over? Let me see. All right, y'all. I'm going to make Salat. I'm going to put y'all in a timeout. All right, so give me a few minutes, family. Let me just get the whatchamacallit. I'm gonna get a caption here so that everybody can see. 1 second, family. Second here. There we go. Would be. I know how to spell. Don't vilify me because the B there has 2 E's. I have fat finger syndrome. All right. I don't hear no nonsense from y'all. Okay. Let's do this again. There we go. All right. That's better. All right. Let me just switch this up here. 1 second. Actually, let me do it like this, yo. Tiger Woods, y'all. Tiger Woods, y'all. Back like crack, family. All right, y'all. Let me know if y'all can hear me. We know how the sound is. Press number 1 to the chat if the sound is good in the hood. And we are back. I hope y'all made salat. And let's get back to the nitty-gritty. Number 1 to the chat, y'all can hear me, family. And let me just get this caption off here. And we get a new caption. Let me get this on. Here we go. Let's do this one. Let's do this one. There we go. All right, family. So, like we were saying, yeah, if y'all can hear me, just put number 1 in the chat, family. There we go. All right. Mashallah, 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 mashallah. We got the ones. We got the ones. So looky here. We were saying that the hubris and the ambition that these particular YouTubians have of course it's going to lead to their downfall. But it's not just them, because they're absolutely reckless, because hubris leads you to be reckless. That's the only way it will lead. It doesn't lead you to you know, being careful and being, having concern of your audience. Hubris always leads to recklessness and irresponsible behavior and things that will cause your downfall. So, some of y'all may know that some months ago or whatever, Mohammed Hijad, he announced that he was taking Douglas Murray to trial for defamation. Some of y'all may know, some of y'all may not know. Of course, for us, we are not into the salacious stuff or anything like that, so we didn't cover that at all. However, what the fallout of what happened because of this defamation suit was so profound that this is the real reason why we decided to do this. Because we done been hearing about Yasir Qadhi, we done hearing about Mohammed Hijad and all this salacious stuff. We done been hearing about Daniel Haqiqatjou and all this stuff with the Shia this and the Shia that and all the kind of stuff. We didn't bother touching it. Okay. Because we done told y'all about these folks. So for the day ones and whatnot, the people who watch the features, you know very well that there's something bigger coming if I brought this up. So let's look at this tweet here. 1 second, family. Let me just get this all sort of set up for you. If y'all prayed, may Allah accept your prayer. And if you didn't pray, may Allah accept your coming prayer, inshallah. 1 second, family. So brother sent me this tweet. Now, mind you, I don't go on Twitter. It's the stuff that y'all sent me, okay? Y'all send me stuff every single day, right? Right? So I would have no clue. But y'all sent me, so brother sent me this tweet. And this is from Dr. Talib Abdul Razak. Let me just read it out for y'all, okay? It says, so as I said he would, Mohammed Hijad lost his defamation claim against Douglas Murray. While I'm not glad, considering who his opponent was, he clearly had no business bringing the claim in the first place. He will now likely be liable for substantial cost orders. Throughout the proceedings, he was caught lying. He was caught in several lies. Y'all remember we did a whole video about Mohammed Hijad and his lies. Okay. Way back. Okay. There are some absolute howlers in the full judgment posted in the following tweets, so you can read it for yourself. But below are screenshots, including him introducing evidence as to loss of earnings that were contrived for the purposes of the proceeding, among other blatant lies. The judge could only conclude that this evidence was worthless. What y'all got to understand, the psychology behind every narcissist is to lie in order to protect their reputation and the way that people see them. That's their default move. Narcissists will never admit a mistake unless it's to their benefit. Otherwise they will never do it. And let me tell y'all, when I started this YouTube stuff, I had no clue. Wallah, I had no clue. I was like, y'all, I was just watching these dudes on my monitor or whatnot. Oh, wow, mashallah, mashallah. This is a good guy. This is a good guy. Wow, mashallah. Then I got to meet some of them. And let me tell y'all, family, narcissism amongst the dawah sphere is rampant. And one of the most, you could say, hardcore narcissist is, it just happened to be Mohammed Hijad. A hardcore narcissist. Him, Wajdi Akari, hardcore narcissist. And I mean a hardcore. And of course, well, some people hide it better than others. If you look at Daniel Haqiqatjou, he can't hide his narcissism. He can't hide it. It's impossible. That dude has his narcissism on full display for the world to see. And people still follow him. But I digress. Hijab, or Hijab, as he's portrayed himself in this claim, is a singularly unsuitable person to represent the Muslim community in the UK or indeed anywhere. He is merely a Beltaji, as the Egyptians would say, a street-level thug, not an intellectual or a person of upright morals. That this is subjective here, right? That's his opinion, but even me, I can tell you from without a doubt, not that he's a thug, whatever. I mean, it could be. I don't know him like that. But his narcissism, that's something that I know for a fact. Okay. That's something that I know for a fact. Okay. Where are we here? Everything has to be about him being the center of attention, to the point that he thought it was a good idea to try to debate the barristers cross-examining him, thinking London High Court was a movie set where he was going to outwit elite trained advocates in wordplay and win the day. You can just imagine Mohammed Hijab going to court pulling a David Wood debate. Right? That's what he's doing. That's pretty much what he's saying that he's doing. He pulling a David Wood. Well, he didn't win anything except the cost order. And in the process, he and those who aided and abetted him dragged our community through the dirt once again. Not to mention the significant damage that he has done to the Sapiens Institute's reputation. That's another can of worms altogether with the Sapiens Institute, but we won't get into that right now because it's not really relevant to our conversation. We could probably do that another day, but I probably won't anyways, because I'm tired of talking about these YouTubian die elites, and we haven't talked about the YouTubian die elites for many months. Okay. What an utter abject fool. Okay, that's his opinion. Okay, I'm just reading what he's saying. I hope the applause of the chicken shop lurkers was worth it. So now he's got the screenshots. And this is what it said. Mohammed Hijab versus the Spectator. Okay. As a witness, he was competitive and constantly argumentative. He sought at every turn, right? This is the actual documents, court documents, to debate with the counsel, responding to questions with rhetorical questions of his own, arguing his case rather than giving straightforward responses, and denigrating the character of the second defendant, to whom he bears palpable personal animosity. I am satisfied that he lied on significant issues, with the consequence that his evidence overall is worthless. This is from the context of this. Look at this is the judge speaking. Okay. Specifically, I'm satisfied. Let's go to the next page. Hold on. Where are we here? Okay, we're just going to read this page. The messages of the claimant relied to show the withdrawal of funding arrangements have the appearance of being contrived for the purpose of these proceedings. In 2 instances, they are addressed as Dear Mr. Hijab, when the correspondents were well known to the claimant and addressed him and other compatriots in contemporaneous context in altogether the more natural, less formal terms. They each attribute their decision to disassociate from him to the article. They each provided the material that would be the necessary to support the claim of financial losses occasioned by the publication of the article, when one might not generally expect such detail to be provided in a communication that withdraws from nascent discussions. They arrived from the 3 separate organizations at roughly the same time, which was several weeks after the article, but shortly before the letter sent claim was sent. The claimant recognized the implausibility that this was all a coincidence. His explanation, which is in isolation may have been plausible, was that the decision makers for the three organizations knew one another and were likely to have consulted with each other, and that is why the decisions were made about at the same time. So basically, for y'all who are not catching what's going on here, what the judge is saying here, I'm pretty sure this is the judge speaking. What he is saying is that the evidence that Mohammed Hijab had provided was fabricated in order to bring about the perception that the materials were they were basically brought in order to build a case for it's like an extortionary type thing, right? So he's saying here that it is implausible for these materials and the way that they were written to be done all within the time frame within what that Mohammed Hijab has presented it. It seems more likely that they were made up to extort. Well, he didn't use the words extortion here. He's using very civil language, but that's pretty much what is being insinuated here, if you didn't catch it. Okay, let's go over here. That's for the financial losses, that is. So he's basically making up financial losses. He's making it up. He's making up financial losses in order to say, this is what I lost, so let me get this money from these people, right? The supporting evidence was unsatisfactory. There was no disclosure of contracts, receipts, accounts, or any payments. Statements from Mr. Wasway, Nature's Blends, and Mr. Rahman, One Ummah, oh boy, and Mr. Hussein of Salaam were served. Each statement apparently supported a claim of disassociation from the claimant as a result of the article. Wow. Wow, that's crazy, man. Up until the pre-trial review, it was anticipated these witnesses would give evidence. At the pre-trial review, it was said that the court's permission would be sought from Mr. Wasway to give evidence remotely from outside the court's jurisdiction. Some days later, it was suggested the court's permission would be sought for Mr. Rahman to give his evidence remotely from outside the court's jurisdiction. The first defendant, when served further disclosure, which related to Mr. Wasway's evidence, the following day, the claimant served a hearsay notice in respect to Mr. Wasway's evidence under Section 2. Oh, this is crazy, man. This is crazy. So basically, what's happening here is that they're saying, okay, these guys are going to come forward as witnesses. When a trial comes, they basically bailing out. Okay, that's what I understand from this. Right? The procedure, the civil procedure rules, it was said that he would not be called as a witness of the pre-existing mental health because of a pre-existing mental health condition. No medical evidence was provided. This is crazy, man. So he's saying that I can't go to court because I have a pre-existing mental health condition while not providing proof for that. You get me? I acceded to the contested application made to the first defendant for a witness summons so that it could be called Mr. Wasway to be cross-examined on his statement pursuant of whatever the code there, CPR 32. I don't know anything, but that's what it seems like what's going on to me. So they're saying that they got witnesses, and when the time to come to go to court for a witness, all of a sudden there are no shows. They want to be witnesses remotely. They're trying to give excuses, so I can't be a witness because I'm mentally ill. This type of stuff. In cross-examination, Mr. Wasway accepted that he has been convicted on his plea of offenses of dishonesty. Wow. causing staged road traffic accidents to secure compensation on false basis, albeit he maintains his innocence. He was sentenced to 27 weeks imprisonment. Oh boy. An ex-colleague of from Nature's Blends was also convicted. Mr. Wasway, who did not apparently appreciate the significance of the point, made it clear that Nature's Blends decided to disassociate from the claimant of its own accord without consulting any other organization. He thereby flatly contradicted the claimant's explanation of what the claimant recognized was otherwise an implausible coincidence. So these are the takeaways from the Mohammed Hijab versus what's that guy again? What's his name again? 1 second, y'all. Douglas Murray from that media outlet. What's the media outlet again, Fami? Remember, Mohammed Hijab is the one who said he's going to take them. He's the one who brought this whole, he did the whole thing. Mohammed Hijab out there suing people, right? For defamation and all kind of stuff, and saying that he lost income and all kind of stuff, making up receipts, making up receipts for loss and all kind of stuff. And then getting caught in the court with, like, how do you do something like that? How do you do something like that? It's Pinky and the Brain up in this piece, family. It's Pinky and the Brain up in here, man. Hi, Brain. What we're going to do today? The same thing we do every day, Pinky. Try to take over the world. What kind of amateur plot nonsense is this? And again, the whole point is that this is the man with the largest Muslim YouTube platform. The largest. Exactly, the pride before the fall, as Liam said. Which brings us again to the whole point, what you was talking about, which is the Icarus effect. This is all the Icarus effect. That was the pride before the fall. Icarus was very, very proud, and he kept flying higher and higher and higher until eventually he fell. Which brings us to our next individual in this whole infiltration project, who is Yasir Qadhi. Now, some of y'all, you asked me about Yasir Qadhi in private for years, and I've been saying the same thing for years. Right, let me just pull up. I'm just going to show y'all something, let you know I'm not capping. 1 second, family. Oh, 1 second. Where are we here? Oh boy, 1 second, y'all. Let me just doctor this. Give me a minute, y'all. 1 second, family. Hold on, y'all. I got to do this again. I thought I had already got this prepped. You see how dusty we are up in here? 1 second, y'all. Okay, now let's do this here. Okay, I think I got them all. 1 second. I think that's all of it. Okay. Because I don't want to out people because I don't think this brother would mind, but just in case. You know what I mean? I don't think he would mind, but just in case. So let's go over here now. Let me just share this with y'all. Okay, here we go. Okay. So this is a conversation that I had with a brother. Okay. And we're talking about Yasir Qadhi. This is about the time when all that stuff was breaking out about, holes in the narrative of hadith now. Okay. Holes in the narrative. But I always said that those who know me from the behind the scenes, when they ask me about Yasir Qadhi, usually say the same thing. And I told the brother the same thing I tell everybody, right? So you can see here the date. This was the 16th of June. 16th of June, 2025. And this is what I said. I said, this is me right here. Between us, I have a hard time trusting Muslims who educate themselves in Western Ivy League schools and still try to teach Islam. That's what I said. 1 second, y'all. What the heck's going on here? Let me get this thing up again. Why did it disappear? 1 second, y'all. Let me get it up again. One second. There we go. Okay. Then he responds, the brother responds. It all depends on the individuals. It'll vary from person to person, right? And I'm responding to something you're saying that's common. And he says, Bilal Phillips got his PhD from the University of Wales. And he's got his hands up, right? So this is what I said. I said Ivy League schools, and I always say this, Ivy League schools are notorious for training spooks. And then I said, yeah, and responding to about the Bilal Phillips thing, yeah, but they are not like Harvard or Cambridge. And they are not. Wales is not like Harvard or Cambridge, which are these types of schools that produce spies and foreign policy experts. That's what I meant. So you are correct in saying it depends for sure. Yes, it does depend on the Ivy League school. Wales, I don't think I've ever heard of a spook or a foreign policy expert ever come out of Wales, but they come out of, for example, Thomas Sowell family. What school did he go to? Condoleezza Rice. What school did she go to? George Bush. What school did he go to? George Bush used to be, George was senior anyways, he used to be the leader of the FBI. He was in Skull and Bones. These are the Ivy League schools we're talking about. You can't find not a single person who was heavily involved in spying, including not just the think tanks behind these organizations, like the Hoover Institute, but the assets, the local assets, come from these schools as well. They always come from, you always see the same schools over and over again. You always see Harvard, you always see Yale, you always see Cambridge, you always see Princeton. I think there's one more I can't think about the top of my head. Maybe one of y'all can put it in the chat. But it's the same schools over and over and over again. Whether it's FBI, CIA, whatchamacallit, think tank, they always have these spooks all the time. So that's what I was talking about. Because we know, especially in the Black community, that the big thought leaders and big people in whatchamacallit, in these positions of power that pretend to be us always come from these schools. Look at whatchamacallit. What's that judge name again? Supreme Court judge. Oxford in Britain. That's right. That's another one, right? If you look, what's the judge name? The black judge, family. What's his name again, man? It's on the top of my head. The one who went to Harvard. He's a Supreme Court judge now. What's his name, family? They all go to these schools. They all go to these schools. And what school did whatchamacallit, Daniel Haqiqatjou go to? Didn't he go to Harvard? Didn't we even say on this channel publicly and openly, that folks like this that go to these type of schools, there's a very high chance that they're an infiltrator? A very high chance. And then we say that, and because he went to Harvard, that is reason enough for you to be suspicious of him. So Yasir Qadhi the same way. He went to Yale, right? He went to Yale. I believe he went to Yale. Yeah, no, was it Yale or did he go to Yale? Somebody put the school that he went to. I think it's Yale. Yale is one of those schools, family. Yale is one of those schools that produce spies. The also should be not to trust people that come out in schools, not to trust them, but rather not to trust them. Because they will go in one way and come out a completely different way. So now we have a video from, you guessed it once again, the Muslim metaphysician, okay? Jake Brancatella, okay? Mind you, I said that on the 16th. Jake brought this video like 5 days ago. I made that comment on July 16th. Look what Jake brought. He came with some receipts or things that we've been saying. UPenn is one of them. Yes, that's right. Tika said it. UPenn is definitely one of them. You know, I believe also, if I'm not mistaken, who else went to UPenn? I can't remember, man. Yeah, see, I was right. Yeah, right. Yale. He went to Yale. These schools always produce spooks. These Ivy League schools, those type, and it's always the same ones over and over and over and over again. Let me get this guy's name. 1 second, y'all. It's like killing me here. 1 second. Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, he went to Harvard. Clarence Thomas was put in his position as a black man in order to make sure white supremacists got everything they got through the Supreme Court. That's why he was put there. These are the types of people. They come, they look like you, but they're actually against you. You get me? Munafiq, nafaka. They are munafiqun. They are infiltrators. You think they're going to represent you, but what they are representing are interests that are purely and solely against you. So for me, my default is when I see these people coming out these schools, I always default to don't trust them. Don't trust them. See what they do first. Because we have too many examples of it. Too many. People are pretending to be with you, but are actually working against you. And they're very, 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 very intelligent people. And like super smart. You know, you cannot be an FBI agent or a CIA agent without having an extremely high intellectual whatchamacallits, like a intellectual bucket. Okay, you have to be very intellectual and manipulative. So I digress. 1 second, family. So Janky came out with this video like a few days ago. Let's watch, y'all. Y'all ready? Some of y'all may have already seen it. Okay, 1 second, family. We get the volume up.
They, in the end, did get what they want out of Yasir Qadhi, because all he does is come out with these nonsense about holes in the narrative regarding the preservation of the Quran, or another part 2, holes in the narrative about the hadith sciences and how they are reliable, and according to Yasir Qadhi, how they're not really reliable, right? Anyway, let's take a look at some of this information. Now, this is from a while ago, but many of you will be familiar with WikiLeaks, and I'm just going to read some of this for you guys and let you be the judge and see what this information is, right? So it says the Global Intelligence Files. On Monday, February 27th, 2012, WikiLeaks began publishing the Global Intelligence Files. Over 5 million emails from the Texas headquartered global intelligence company Stratford. More on that in just a second. The emails date between July 2004 and late December 2011. They reveal the inner workings of a company that fronts as an intelligence publisher, but provides confidential intelligence services to large corporations, such as, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this exactly, Bhopal's Dow Chemical Company, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and government agencies, including the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Marines, and the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency. The emails show Stratford's web of informers. Wow, is Yasir Qadhi one of them? Payoff structure, payment laundering techniques, and psychological methods. Okay, so this happened in 2012. It's not something new, but I think it is something important in light of recent events. Now, this is an example of just one email exchange by some of the top individuals at Stratford. Okay, so you can see this took place in what appears to be 2013, and this is from Kamran Bukhari, right? So he says, and he's speaking to Fred Burton, who we'll see who these guys are in just a second, on February 11th, okay? And he says here, February 11th, 2010, sorry, this is when the email exchange is actually from. He says, did you get this one? Then a response from Kamran Bukhari to Fred Burton. Despite our huge differences, I have a working relationships of sorts with the guy. And as we'll see, he's referring to Yasir Qadhi, where he at least hears me out. He is struggling with his journey towards moderation and has been criticized by the traditional Salafists, and of course, the more radical ones as a deviant. The guy is highly interested in ownership over a modern Salafi discourse, but he has some hangovers that will take time and support to get over. He has a large following among American and British youth. I can help our friends to get this guy to become more comfortable with us.
Now, the takeaway I want to take from here is what he said right there about his interest. Look at here. Look at here. Listen to what he said again. We're going to repeat that one more again. One moment.
He is struggling with his journey towards moderation and has been criticized by the traditional Salafists, and of course, the more radical ones as a deviant. The guy is highly interested in ownership over a modern Salafi discourse.
He is interested in ownership over a modern Salafi discourse. All right. Remember, we talk about the Icarus effect. The Icarus effect. Right. Now, these are spooks talking behind the scenes in email conversation about how to recruit Yasir Qadhi as an asset. You got to understand, with infiltration, there are different levels, right? So an asset is somebody who's not necessarily what should we call it? Like what should we call? How do you say this? They might not necessarily be from the get-go all in at what's going on. They might be somebody who is useful in either sharing information or disseminating information, right? That's an asset. You get me? So, for example, in the Afghan war, the people who were sharing information with the US government, they might not necessarily be against their own people, but they're sharing intelligence with the US government because maybe they're trying to get rid of some warlord or something like that. So in this case, the motivation for Yasir Qadhi is to become the head, or rather take ownership of the modern Salafi discourse. Very, very ambitious. Let's keep watching, y'all.
But he has some hangovers that will take time and support to get over. He has a large following among American and British youth. I can help our friends to get this guy to become more comfortable with us. So these intelligence officers are clearly stating that they know Yasir Qadhi, they're in contact with him, and they're going to try to attempt to get him to a more moderate Salafi approach, attempt to allow him to speak his mind about some of these things, but they want to bring him more towards their direction. And then this guy says, I can help our friends to get this guy to become more comfortable with us. Given the Abdul Muttalib case, and we'll explain who this guy is in just a second, he is under pressure, and we can use that to our advantage to have him help us identify the bad guys. So they're talking about basically getting to this guy by using this other individual, which we'll see was a student of Yasir Qadhi, who actually was a very famous bomber in a famous event, which I'll show Yasir Qadhi acknowledging this. They're talking about using this guy to pressure Yasir Qadhi to actually get him to do what they want, right? It says we can use that to our advantage to have him help us identify the bad guys, assist with long-term monitoring, and perhaps even in the long run, develop a Salafi ideology that doesn't clash with the need to integrate in mainstream Western life. He has a unique personality, and it is hard to find people like him. Perhaps that is why the folks at NCTC invited him for their de-radicalization event in 2008. Fred Burton responds, yeah, your offer to get to the dude at the group, right? So they're trying to get to Yasir Qadhi. And then they continue on, did you get this one? Would be helpful to know your thoughts that I could forward. Let our friends know that I can help on this if need be. I can potentially get Yasir Qadhi, the guy who leads Al-Maghrib, to cooperate as well. So they're all talking, and this is all further.
Now you can see the date here, right? It looks February 10th, 2010. This is old. This is around the same time that those of y'all old schools who remember. Around this time, we started seeing Yasir Qadhi with, the Sufis and them. He started coming out with whatchamacallit, what's his name? Suwaib Webb and Hamza Yusuf, this type of stuff, right? He's trying to lead the modern, less radical Salafi discourse, right? So these are some old messages, which, like I said, if you go to these Ivy League schools, this is the eventual track. that you will end up here. You will end up either a full-fledged agent or an asset. I don't trust any of them, to be honest. As a matter of fact, my default is not to trust them if they went to these schools. But anyway, I digress. Let's keep watching, y'all.
Down, right? And then Fred Burton says, how may I ask, is this center in Houston allowed to operate, and why hasn't it been closed down? I will pose this question to the FBI, Texas Rangers, Congress, and the governor. So these are the type of groups or individuals, people, that these guys have access to. And they clearly had it in their agenda to use certain, what they felt was dirt against Yasir Qadhi in order to try to manipulate him for their own personal agenda, okay? Very clear. This is what they're saying. This is not, at this point, conspiratorial. Now, whether or not they were successful into getting to Yasir Qadhi out of, I don't know, bribing him with money or basically manipulating him because of, and pulling the strings because of certain dirt they had on him, we don't know that for sure. But in the end, they got what they wanted out of this guy, a so-called de-radicalization effect. This bringing forward modernist Islam forward, right? Casting doubt on the Quran and the Sunnah, and trying to integrate Muslims into Western society. This is what Yasir Qadhi has been doing over the past 15 years. So one wonders if they got him or not. But even if it's not that case, maybe they just nudged him in the direction that they wanted, and he wound up going that way on his own. But nevertheless, they're very happy, these intelligence agencies, for what Yasir Qadhi is preaching and the things that he's been involved in. Now, let me just show you guys who some of these individuals are. So you saw the name Fred Burton. This is Fred Burton's official website. Former special agent and New York Times bestselling author Fred Burton. Fred Burton is a former police officer, special agent, and New York Times bestselling author. He served on the front lines of high-profile investigations like the hunt for and arrest of Ramzi Youssef, the mastermind behind the World Trade Center bombing, the 1988 planned crash of PAK-1 that killed U.S. Ambassador Arnold Ratfel and Pakistani President Mohammed Zia-ul-Haq, and the search for Americans kidnapped by Hezbollah in Beirut, Lebanon. So on and on. This guy is a very well-established government agent, special agent of the U.S. government. Okay, and he's publishing on his own website. So this is not conspiracy.
Okay, I just wanted to say something here at this point, because you got to understand something, how the U.S. was doing their tactics during the Cold War, right? So they did a lot of things that were called false flag operations, where they would essentially set up some sort of terrorist something or the other, blame somebody else, and use it as a pretense to attack somebody else's country. Okay, so for example, Pearl Harbor, the Japanese didn't attack Pearl Harbor. It was their own U.S. military that attacked Pearl Harbor, pretending to be Japanese, as a pretext to enter into World War II, because U.S. had nothing to do with World War II, but they wanted to enter into World War II at this time. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. We have other ones, like, of course, 9/11. And those of y'all who remember 9/11, you know very well what happened with the wider immigrant community. You know, Hijaz suddenly fell off and beards got shaved. And you know what I mean? These people was running scared. And all of a sudden, this is the same time that Hamza Yusuf went from this fiery speaker, fiery against the U.S. government, to, oh, you know, Islam means peace. And then all of a sudden, everybody talking about Islam means peace. That's when Islam started meaning peace, after 9/11. I challenge you to find any speaker before 9/11 talking about Islam means peace. I challenge you. Right? But anyways, I digress. Nowadays, the tactics are way cheaper. They cost a lot less, and they don't really require much, because subversion nowadays is done through the internet. It's done through the algorithms. And if you look at the 2016 U.S. election, when Donald Trump won, the Russian government admitted openly that they were using and leveraging Facebook as a means to garner support for Trump, particularly amongst Black voters. They admitted this. So anybody now who is involved in any type of social media, which is the whole point of this whole live today, we're going to get into that. you are exposing yourself to being, brainwashed by the same folks that are owning these platforms, because the platforms are about to get very hostile very fast. Right? This is why we're doing this live today. But I digress. Let's keep watching, you.
At all. Okay. Now, what else? What about Kamran Bukhari? Who is this individual who is exchanging emails and saying that he can get to Yasir Qadhi? Who is this guy? Okay. We'll see here. Kamran Bukhari is vice president of Middle Eastern and South Asian affairs at Stratfor, which is where these emails came from that were leaked. And I believe that Fred Burton is the vice president of this. Okay, of the entire agency, that is. A leading geopolitical and intelligence consulting firm based in Austin, Texas. Mr. Bukhari is a distinguished scholar and expert in Middle Eastern and South Asian affairs. He has given briefings to the U.S. and Canadian governments on important geopolitical issues in the Islamic world and played a fundamental role in shaping Stratford's knowledge base in the region. And it continues on and on about who he is. So this is well known. These guys are not like some random people that we're just making up. Now, who was this Abdul Muttalib that the emails mentioned they can use his example to get to Yasir Qadhi? Now we'll see here, this is an article published by Muslim Matters in 2010. What do you know? Just some 5 or 6 months later after those emails, guys, because that was from February of 2010, right? So just some months later, Yasir Qadhi is publishing this article, The Lure of Radicalism and Extremism Amongst Muslim Youth. Now what do we find here? He says, this academic at the luncheon was not the only one struggling with the question. A recent congressional hearing also tackled this same issue. And of course, this was not the first time that I, myself, meaning Yasir Qadhi, had to confront this very question. It was especially driven home after someone with whom I had only briefly interacted, right? And he mentions who here? Abdul Muttalib, right? That's the same individual that's mentioned in emails. The now infamous underwear bomber turned radical and tried to blow up innocent men, women, and children. Right? So he was involved in an attempted terrorist attack. Omar's transformation provides an excellent case study that can and should be studied further to shed light on the question of radicalism. And this short essay makes a first humble attempt at doing just that. I remember Omar as a shy introvert who attended an intensive retreat, the Ilm Summit, sponsored by Al-Maghrib Institute in Houston, Texas, in the summer of 2008. I was among 10 instructors at that retreat. Omar was in fact so quiet and shy that I almost felt obliged to engage him in small talk, asking him mundane questions about where he lived and what he was studying. And that was about the extent of my interaction with him. Never once did he raise his hand in class to ask a question or seek any advice or share any concerns or confront me on any subject. It appears that the lack of communication or socializing was not limited to the two of us. Rather, it seemed that other students at the retreat had the same experience. They didn't remember anything significant about him except his nonchalant, quiet presence. In fact, my encounter with him had been so brief and dull that when I saw his pictures being paraded on every website and news magazine cover in December of 2009, I didn't even recognize him until someone alerted me via email that this was the same Omar who had been at the Al-Maghrib retreat. Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined that someone as shy and socially introverted as Omar would have attempted to blow up a plane by stuffing his underwear with explosives. So,
okay, so the gist of this reading the story here is to show that this was leverage. It's just basically insinuating that's this leverage against Yasir Qadhi, this particular student, right? I want to tell you a story around the same time, or maybe a little bit earlier, about Dr. Bilal Phillips. Now, Bilal Phillips, he's like a legend in the dawah back in the day, right? And Spubs and them started rising up, right? Spubs and them, they basically took the internet by storm. We told the story many times on this channel, right? But the reason why Spubs garnered a stranglehold on the dawah is because they were the first one to go out on the internet and stuff, right? When the internet started coming out. So they started putting their stuff on the websites and stuff. So they're the only ones that are putting stuff out in the English language in terms of dawah on their website. Long story short, they came out against Dr. Bilal Phillips. And they started saying that Dr. Bilal Phillips was an extremist. And they gave this lecture. All right. I was there at the time where it was Sheikh Ubaid al-Jabari who was speaking. And after Sheikh Ubaid spoke, he had found all of your spubby, you had your, whatchamacallit, Abu Khadija and Amjad Freak and all these guys. They started speaking right after the Sheikh, right? Bilal Davis. And they all said, and this shows that Bilal Phillips is this and this and that and blah, 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 blah. Right? I was there live when it took place, right? Long story short, eventually Bilal Phillips gets labeled as an extremist. He gets labeled as an extremist, and he can't come back to Canada. Okay. And not only that, any masjid that invites Dr. Bilal Phillips to their mosque will lose their charitable status. All this is real. Y'all can look it up. Go look it up right now on the internet. Y'all got Google. Okay. Remember, we are the first ones here to say that that whole Spubs project was an infiltration project. There's not a single black Da'i in that time period, except that they refuted them. All of them. The only ones that they didn't refute are the ones that were part and parcel of what they were down with. And on top of that, Abu Khadija has a lecture on YouTube. You go listen to yourself. You go listen to yourself. Abu Khadija has a lecture on YouTube where, or not a lecture, but rather a Q&A. Somebody's asking him, you know, what if somebody has these tendencies, blah, 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 blah. Abu Khadija is telling them to turn them into the police. Right? Why am I saying all this? Because these are the old infiltration tactics. Okay? There are some new infiltration tactics coming soon. 1 second, y'all. Let's watch this.
We see clearly, in terms of practical application, that Daniel seems to have been doing this for the past few years.
1 second, y'all.
Or conservative proclivity. Well,
1 second.
Strategic information, this individual is refusing to respond to me. I want to show you guys this. It's, again, I'm not saying the guy is a government agent, but it's very strange how these predictions were him a government agent of say definitively that this individual is a government agent, but he likes to make claims and accuse Salafi ideology that is in line with the Western life. When Yasir Qadhi has made statements about the Sharia or Islamic law being bizarre, right? And he has cast doubt on certain things, and he's clearly been pushing for the past 15 years, increasingly a more and more modernist agenda. Well, whether they got in his pockets or not officially, they for sure got what they wanted out of him. That much we cannot really question. Now, just if that wasn't enough, I want to transition to somebody else who has been a very strong critic of Yasir Qadhi over these years. And again, I'm not sharing this information to say definitively that this individual is a government agent, but he likes to make claims and accusations about people like me being a government agent. And that's none other than Daniel Haqiqatjou himself.
Yeah, 10 toes down. I am saying definitively, Daniel Haqiqatjou is an agent, okay? And I've been saying it. We were the first ones to say it. We're the first ones to say that he was alt-right. We're the first one to say he's a closet Shia. And we're the first ones to say he's an agent. He's a munafiq, an infiltrator. And we're not taking it back. And we've been saying it for donkey years. We didn't know about him like that. We didn't know about him like that. It's only after the evidence was presented, which we presented to the people, irrefutable evidence. But again, you can't expect people to accept evidence because a lot of times evidence is just not enough. Those who don't learn must feel, and the people done felt. Anyways, let's keep watching, y'all.
He claims that I am a government agent of foreign governments. You know, he makes up all of these lies and distortions about what I believe and that I'm, a paid government agent. He says the same thing about other brothers in the dawah, like Fareed and Adnan Rashid. Now, because he makes these wild accusations, I thought that there was nothing wrong with me.
By the way, that is called snitch jacketing. It's an old tactic of actual infiltrators dating way back in the 60s from the Black Panthers. So what the snitch will actually do, the one who's actually the infiltrator, in order to draw attention away from himself or herself, they will accuse somebody else of being a snitch. A lot of Panthers got killed behind this. Snitch jacketing. And usually what is the case is that the one who's doing the snitch jacketing, the one who was doing the snitch jacket, will increase the amount of people they suspect of snitching because people start suspecting him. That's an old tactic. And we did a whole video about this, the snitch jacketing and stuff, right? Non-related to Daniel Haqiqatjou. So Daniel, all he's doing is snitch jacketing. Can you imagine Jake, a paid agent? Not just Jake, but Fareed and everybody that disagree with him, a paid agent. Because the people are putting pressure on him. Because he's a closet Shia and he's out there defending the Shia. You get me? Let's keep watching, y'all. Look up snitch jacketing on Google. Just you'll see it yourself, right? It'll give a better description than what I give. Keep watching, y'all.
Actually displaying this. And I want to show you guys this. Again, I'm not saying the guy is a government agent, but it's very strange how these predictions were made just 2 years prior to now, and we see the past 2 years pretty much unfolding exactly as what's stated in these messages. So this is from a random account on Twitter. I have no idea who this person is, but as you can see, this is in September 22nd of 2023. And this person says, someone has sent these to me and claims they know about how Daniel has a paid agenda. I inquired for more information. This individual is refusing to respond to me anymore. Now listen to what this person says, please, and push it through because it's urgent. As for elaboration, Daniel Haqiqatjou was conscripted by an individual called Tim Liggett, an ex-Black Ops, ex-military. Liggett runs an Eyes on Muslims strategic cooperation venture and partly funded by the Club of Rome. The vision stated is designed to gauge what Muslims are thinking about current political events and how they are likely to vote, essentially which way the political spectrum is swinging, primarily across the United States, but not restricted to it. It further aims to turn Muslims away from their perceived left-wing or democratic sympathies towards more pro-Republican or conservative proclivity. Well, that sounds a lot like...
Who was the first person to say that Daniel was an alt-righter? Somebody put it in the chat, please. And I didn't even have the benefit of that tweet. This is the first time, not the first time, I watched this video before. It's the second time I've seen that tweet. And both times I've seen it in this specific video. And y'all can go to my playlist. I have a whole playlist, Daniel Haqiqatjou files. Go look at the dates. Go look at the titles. I had no clue about this tweet and this whole connection between intelligence agencies. All I said, all I went by was experience. Do you know there's not a single black imam, not one black imam that has not been approached by intelligence agencies? Not a single one. Not one. You ask all of them. All of them have been approached by intelligence agencies. So the way that infiltration is done in the black community is not through the black imam. It's always through other people that are not black. Foreigners, every single time when it comes to the Muslims. Like your Abu Khadijas, like your Hassan Somalis and them, Musa Richardson, all these folks. Ask your local black, I don't even have to know the answer. Go ask Mufti, go ask Sheikh Tahir, go ask all of them. Go ask Dawood Adib, go ask Abu Osama. Ask them. I've been approached by CSIS here. Can't tell me nothing. But that's why, family, that we are broke. The only ones that would actually, in my opinion, that actually have a high chance of working with these intelligence agencies happen to be Sufis. Because Sufis are, how do you say this? They're obsessed with dismantling Wahhabis. Totally obsessed. And there's nothing that is off the table with them when it comes to that dismantling Wahhabi. What's a Wahhabi? I'm a Wahhabi. You're a Wahhabi. Anybody who's a Salafi is a Wahhabi. So Daniel now, he checks all of the whole checklist of a classical Munafiq infiltrator. He checks all of them, every last one of them. Can't stop lying, just can't stop lying. Can't stop snitch jacketing. Can't stop directing the people to listen to people that are hostile to Islam. Just every single check mark. Went to Harvard. His whole platform is dedicated to directing Muslims towards the far right, so much so that he said in the AIM conference, you can work with any Muslim except for a liberal Muslim. You can work with a Diobendi, you can work with a... He said this. You put it out there. And I thought we were calling him an alt-righter before that too. We've been saying this for so long. And now people are catching up. Anyways, keep watching. Let's keep watching, y'all.
Like Daniel Haqiqatjou. Do you see how he cozies up to some of these far right individuals? And do you see the difference between his conversations with people who are on the far right versus people who are on the left? And I'm not saying I'm not for either party, and I'm not for the far left or the far right or really anything in between, because I don't believe that they're these political systems and that these, whether it be the left wing.
That was what really made me believe that he was an infiltrator. That time that he put out that post. Remember he put out a post? The far right personalities and all these kuffar, extreme kuffar, advising the Muslims to listen to him. At that point, I'm like, no, this guy's definitely he's an infiltrator. He's a 100% infiltrator. He is not one of us. He's out here pretending to be us. He might not even be Muslim. And I'm not afraid to say that. That's when I knew for sure he was like, I was always suspicious, but you can't just work on suspicion. But that right there, when he did that, I was like, no, this dude is an infiltrator. He's an infiltrator. Only an infiltrator would do something like that. You get me? But we were the first ones to say it. But anyways, let's keep watching, y'all.
Or the right wing, I don't believe that they're really truly consistent with Islam. Now, we do know, remember from the PBD podcast, that Daniel was trying to cozy up to Patrick Bet-David and this sort of right wing audience and trying to say that we can be allies with them, right? So, hey, we see clearly in terms of practical application that Daniel seems to have been doing this for the past few years at least. Now it continues on. Recently, Liggett passed the reins of the operation to another individual. And who is this individual? Arash M. Raised as a Shia Muslim, but now an atheist. His purpose was to incorporate Daniel's job into Shia Muslims and Sunni Muslims rather than just Sunni outreach. Wow, this is shocking. This is 2 years ago. Daniel, being known as a Sunni and primarily rejected by Shiite Americans, would need replacing with someone more feasible to Shiite acceptance. Arash himself was a former Shia. Also worthy to mention, he has strong links to Salman, the same guy who was the Swedish Quran burner. Then it says, conveyed to Arash by one of Daniel's handlers, that he was also from a Shiite background. The feeling was still that Daniel had burnt his bridges as far as the Shiite public were concerned. After some deliberation, the decision was made to keep him on for now, with the understanding that he would do more to build bridges with the Shiites. Wow, so Daniel has been doing that.
What did we say, family? Did we not say how long we've been saying that Daniel Haqiqatjou is a closet Shia? And I said it before I even knew this thing existed. I didn't know anything about this tweet, this information, nothing. And now people are coming out. Let's keep watching, y'all.
For the past 2 years. Interesting. Also on Arash's agenda, directed more above, was the instruction to move the focus away from America to Europe and Australia with the United Kingdom, singled out for a particular interest. Over the next year, you are going to see Daniel getting closer to UK-based Muslim figures like Mohammed Hijad, which we've seen in their interviews, Smile to Jannah, and Ali Dawah, which we've seen. And these are the same individuals who have backed up Daniel and refused to condemn him for his defense or attempted defense of the kufr and shirk of the Shia, watering it down and asking for Muslims, for Sunnis, to actually align politically with the Shia and Iran. And he's...
Well, like I said, Daniel is there to bring the Muslims to the far right. That's his whole thing. His whole thing is bring the Muslims to the far right. Hijab is his co-conspirator, right? But Hijab is conspiring with him not because of infiltration. Hijab is conspiring with him because he's ambitious. He's a narcissist. And Daniel has a large platform. And Ali Dawah, what can I say? He's just a grifter. Okay. You know, he's a career YouTuber. He's out there, you know, doing what he can to survive on YouTube, man. Right. But anyways, we showed you about Mohammed Hijab. We showed you about Yasir Qadhi. We showed you about Daniel Haqiqatjou. We made the connection between the Icarus effect and where the dawah is going. This is where I believe the dawah is going. So mark my words. Okay. I do believe that with the new rules that are being put on social media networks and particularly in the US, Donald Trump signed last week, I believe, as a bill to essentially de-woke or unwoke the algorithms, to make the algorithms less woke. In other words, he wants the algorithms not to push, you know, facts and figures, and he wants the algorithms to push ideology. This will necessitate that anybody consuming social media in the West, they will by necessity be exposed more, not just to far right content, but it'll be work like how X is and how Facebook is starting to become. You're going to see a lot more explicit content in order to drive you down the algorithm, keep you watching. Sexually explicit content, like just how it is on X right now. Graphic content, like how it is on X and Facebook is becoming. And a lot more content which is unregulated and unchecked, like what's happening on Facebook today, right? It's already on X. X doesn't have any fact checking, none whatsoever. They push some of the most ridiculous lies all the time, like the South African genocide, okay, the white South African genocide, which people end up believing, like Farouk Post. Farouk Post ends up believing it because he is a white supremacist. And then when you call him a white supremacist, here come these Negroes who love Zaddy so much, rushing to defend him. These people who get their careers and their names in the Black community, like Farouk Post, like Musa Richardson and them, have zero work for their own people. Nothing. They can't tell their people stop murdering, stop killing, stop kidnapping. Stop being. They don't have anything to say to them. The only thing they want to talk about is the Nation of Islam. But at the same time, talking about, white genocide in South Africa and stuff. These people, you are going to see a hell of a lot of more of that. You're going to see it widespread in the Muslim community. Widespread. You're going to see, if you thought it was widespread now, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I predict that this will start happening. It'll probably be really steamrolling next month when these rules start taking place. And this will, by necessity, cause the dawah, not just how it is now, how the dawah right now is trending away from scholarship, it's trending away from traditional Islamic learning and whatnot. We already see this, right? We know this is already here. It's not something people ain't talking about studying overseas and things of that nature anymore. There's the youth, the social media generation. They ain't trying to go anywhere to study Islam. They're studying Islam from their laptops. And who are they studying? Mohammed Hijad, Dan, these are the people that are studying. The most popular, as long as they're popular, that's who they're going to study. Right? So we see it trending away from scholarship, but there's going to be something worse that's going to come. And it's, in my opinion, it's probably already here, because the enemy has been funding the infiltrators for a long time now. And we've seen the success of their work. We see Daniel Haqiqatjou. Now you have your folks like Tom Fakini, right? Now you have your folks like Hamza Yusuf and Ismail Royer with control of the algorithms now in this presidency in the States. You will see that not only the move away from scholarship, but it will be patronized by the kuffar themselves. The dawah itself, the Islamic dawah, will be patronized by the kuffar in the West. And they were going to do it through social media. That's how they will patronize it. So you see right now how the kuffar are patronizing these far-right pundits. They are giving them money. They are the ones who are getting invited to the White House. I think it was last week or a couple of y'all can look this up. Israel invited, I believe it was over 500, I believe, between 1 to 500. Anyways, it's definitely over 100 social media influencers to Israel to train them and how to push a pro-Israeli narrative. And they're paying them for this training so that they can come back to the West and push the pro-Israeli agenda. Look this up. This will be the dawah. And it's not going to take 2 years, 3. No, I believe this is going to happen this year. And the dawah will be controlled by AI and algorithms. And the messaging will be controlled like that. Because they were the ones who are going to control it through monetization and who gets to see what and whatnot. So you're going to have friendlier messaging towards white supremacy from these influencers. And this will in turn neutralize any desire from the youth to become scholars. Because what will be the incentive to become a scholar? Well, you can become the mouthpiece of the Muslims without any Islamic training whatsoever. And the scholars, they will eventually die out. we are seeing the last, in my opinion, the last of the scholarship generation. They will die out, and the dawah will be fully controlled by influencers. So if you think it's bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is why we did this whole long life, to get to this point, to show you how it was, how it is, and how it's going to be. These folks are ambitious. Their careers are social media. We've already shown very plainly and very clearly that they are not really concerned of the messaging of Islam. They're concerned with their influence, and they're willing to say and do anything to maintain it. So, whoever pays the piper names the tune. These platforms are in full control of a MAGA administration. You've seen on Trump's inauguration, Zuckerberg, Musk, what should we call it? What's the leader of Amazon? Bezos. All of these people, these high-level influencers who control these platforms. Now the bill is coming to make the algorithms force the algorithms into right-wing messaging, which will in turn force these already charlatan influencers who are right-wing, because the algorithm is going to force them even further right, which will in turn cause the youth to be further right. Speaking with the tongue of the enemy of Allah on earth. And then when they see these influencers succeeding, they're not going to have, why would they have a desire to memorize Quran, memorize Hadith, when these guys are winning without memorizing anything? Right? There is not going to be any desire for that. When's the last time you watched an influencer and they start rattling off ayat, hadith, like Abu Muslima, for example, or who else? Like these shayukh that we have, Sheikh Albani, or you don't see this. You don't see this anymore. This is not a thing anymore. What they tell you is why we should align ourselves with Candace Owens, who is being sued, by the way, by the president of France for defamation. They want you to follow Andrew Tate, who was in the church, as we just saw. This is their dawah. But anyways, family, Jazakallah khair. I know we went long today, but I want to thank all of you who showed up. Please like, please subscribe, please share, and please keep me in your du'as. And remember, in these times, family, in these times of fitn, as we get closer and closer to Yawm al-Qiyamah, as we get closer and closer to the last day, as we get closer and closer to the emergence of the Dajjal and whatnot, and we can see the infrastructure of the Dajjal system appearing right before our very eyes. Just remember, those who are holding on to the hot coals while everybody is leaving them, you are the cream of the crop. So be patient with the color of Allah, and be patient with the religion of Allah. And don't let the liars fool you. Their lies, even the lies, are so cartoonishly ridiculous. And you reckon Allah made it so easy to recognize the lies that if you follow them, you know that you're following a lie. 100%. If you can follow these folks, you ain't got no chance against the Dajjal, because the Dajjal is coming with some good lies. He's coming with some hardcore lies, not these ridiculous cartoonish lies. But I digress, family. Free the land, beloved. Free the land. Free the land. Free the land. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت واستغفرك واتوب اليك والسلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.